السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وله ما بعد. Welcome to NextGen. Alhamdulillah, this term our main theme was who do you want to be? And for our final event for the term, we've got a special guest, Ustadh Yusuf Tang. Inshallah, without further ado, I'm going to get him to introduce himself for those who weren't listening earlier or who missed out. So we'll get straight into it, inshallah.
خير إن شاء الله. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. First of all, I thank the center, all the organizers, and mashallah, all the beautiful faces for being here tonight. I think the center does an amazing job in organizing these events. Jazakallah khairan. I think, this is one of the few centers, and maybe there are more. I haven't been around in community often that really has programs and things in place for every age group. So even now there's NextGen, but inshallah, as you grow older, you go on to uni or you go into work and you're in your 20s and 30s, inshallah, I really do feel that this place is a place that you can come back and get advice and meet the brothers and really experience the brotherhood, mashallah. There's not many places like this. So thank you for the organizers and all the administration, those that I can't even see tonight, but I know there's a lot of hard work goes into this place. So a bit about me, as we said before, I was born here, grew up in Sydney, grew up in a place, Tempe, went to primary school and high school there. Wasn't that, maybe much the same like Liverpool, I guess. Hey, there's a lot of, when you, mashallah, you kids here are great, but there's a lot of negative influences out there, a lot of kids wanting to be gangsters. Likewise myself in primary school and high school as well. Managed to get through those, alhamdulillah. Went on to study at university, studied finance, was hoping to, as I said before, hoping to get rich, but I ended up doing what I am doing now, which we can speak about more, inshallah. And then going on to the workplace. And as you do, you grow older, you finish university, and then you start working, you get married, and then you have kids, and then you end up back at Markaz Imam Ahmad, back in Liverpool. And it's funny because I spent a lot of time at Liverpool in the old Liverpool Centre, Islamic Centre, when I was younger as well. So that always coming back to out here gives me nice memories of, the friends that I had when I used to go to the Islamic centres. And then I'll leave it to the next questions before I talk too much and maybe bore everyone, inshallah. But I must say, so far, I'm amazed at the attention that you all are giving me, and no one's yawning, everyone's awake. I'm really impressed, mashallah. I'm serious.
Alhamdulillah. So, just a question, maybe the audience don't know about this. Were you born Muslim?
No, I wasn't born Muslim, so became Muslim probably when I was in uni. Nothing too exciting, just didn't have much to lose. I just thought I'll give it a try, and I learned more. And then as you learn more, you find out that, mashallah, it's actually, because when you study other religions, you study Islam, you get a good comparison of what everything is about. You have discussions, and I found that Islam, it's one of those things that the more you study, the more it makes sense, and the more it increases your faith, essentially. So I inshallah hope that you find too that as you're studying more about your Islam, it increases your certainty, this yaqeen that you have and your connection that you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this comes with more knowledge. I know you hear it a lot of the times in the khutbah, everyone's saying, Allahu Akbar, learn knowledge. But this is true, that the more you study about Islam, the more you learn, the more you read, and the more you question. Okay, and that's the beautiful thing about Islam, is that the more you question and you have questions, you have scholars that can answer that and give you beautiful answers to your questions, right? So, I started off obviously wasn't a good Muslim. You know, you just become Muslim. But then as you study more and more, you become sort of, it becomes very, what do you call the word? It becomes very fulfilling as you study more and more and more and more and more. And then it leads to you're thirsty for more knowledge, and then you end up seeking other means to study more and more Islam as you go along. But there's no amazing story, really, brothers. It's not I wake up someday or I have some exciting story. I went to the, here and there. I met someone that gave me da'wah. It's just, some friends became Muslim. I thought I'll try it out. And here I am. This trying ends up becoming a lifelong journey, alhamdulillah. And that was probably over 20 years ago, but it still felt like, to be honest, it feels like I've been living Islam my whole life, most of my life, really, now. But inshallah, I find the more that you study, the more that you inquire and ask questions, and you have to make sure that you ask and be inquisitive, not just read it and absorb information, but the more you question and ask and have teachers here that you ask and feel comfortable asking, the more that you'll find, mashallah, that makes sense. That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's quite profound. Going back to sort of your journey into Islam, did you have certain role models that aided you in, staying steadfast, finding that fulfillment, seeking more knowledge? And could you tell us a bit about these role models?
I think it's quite interesting because, as you, the most important thing for me in my Islamic journey is this friendship that you have now, right? I remember very, very fondly of the nights that I used to attend lectures with my friends in Lakemba. They used to have GRYC here with Sheikh Fay, Sheikh Shadi. It was amazing back then. That was like in early 2000s. All right, that was over 20 years ago, or close to 20 years ago. And it was having the group of friends, and it's friends I still have now, right? Obviously, we all get busy. I don't speak to them as much, but the friends I had then, I still know them now. And the last time I met them was probably a while ago. We played some basketball or whatever, but it was, the friendship and the brotherhood is there, right? So one of the most important things, especially at your age, is having this place that you can come to regularly and meeting new friends or even seeing your existing friends. And don't be afraid to just come for the dodgeball or whatever. Come to have fun. That's what you're meant to do. I don't think we're not expecting you to not have fun and just come and learn and sit at the table. But this place is a place for you to have fun. And I had fun because when you get older, your fun is you sit with the brothers, you have some pizza, you have, you sit around and you play and muck around when you're this age. So this brotherhood and these friendships that you have that keep you coming to a place where you can receive and ask questions and the guidance and ask anything that you want, because you will find that, inshallah, from my experience anyway, the staff here, the teaching staff here, the admin staff here, they're very broad. So whatever field, whatever you're interested in, they can connect you up with someone or something, or whatever you're interested in, or perhaps answer your questions, whether it's Islamically or whether it's just from a study or work perspective, right? But if I'm going back to the foremost thing, is the friends that you have around you is one of the most important things that you're going to have as you progress in your life, okay? And you don't need to keep the same friends all the time, right? You can experiment, you can try different friends, you don't have to have your same group. And I think sometimes we're comfortable in, seeing our brothers Ahmed, seeing our brothers Muhammad all the time, but explore, take that risk, meet some new people, and these are the best environments to do that. Yeah. But please, friendships, brothers, that's what's going to help you the most, inshallah.
Barakallahu feek. So you mentioned that seeking knowledge helped you increase your fulfillment, and having those friends around you, I'm assuming, would be a big aiding factor in seeking knowledge. Could you please tell us a bit about your journey of seeking knowledge? I know you've been overseas.
Yeah, that's very interesting too, my brothers, because look, maybe because you're all in school, okay, it might. I'll tell you the story and I'll narrate it from my perspective, and it's not a path that you need to take because, as I said back then, the resources and the facilities and the systems and all these things that weren't available. But when you study more and more about Islam in English, there's only a certain amount of books that are available in English. And when you exhaust that, then you realize, I want to learn more, I want to read more. Because when you start learning more about Islam, all right, the fundamentals, you might learn to pray and you fast and all those things. But when you start reading more about everything Islamic, you read about Islamic economy, Islamic politics, Islamic everything, there's an Islamic perspective on everything. And when you start wanting to find out more, then you need to venture out more and more to gain this knowledge, which leads you need to learn Arabic, the Arabic language, not only for the Quran, but to access so many Islamic resources. So that was when I decided to start learning Arabic, and it was in Liverpool that we learned, and it was amazing those days. I had the best of friends. It was every Sunday we would study for 6 hours in Arabic, and we'll have pizza, we'll play, we'll wrestle, whatever, play soccer. It was amazing. But even after all that, 6 months to a year, we found that we weren't learning enough Arabic. Why? Because we're living in Australia, right? Everything is in English and so forth. So they gave us all the and subhanAllah, out of that group, most of us, quite a few of us went overseas. Some ended up studying at Medina University in Saudi. And we all just slowly went overseas one by one to learn Arabic. We were really desperate for it. So it was quite funny because I had a job at that time, and then I took up a job in Saudi Arabia, to try and learn more Arabic. So I went over there, I worked and I studied, and I couldn't get enough, so I quit my job, and then I went to Morocco. I studied there, and then I studied in Yemen as well. Came back, so that was enough for the Arabic language. And I quit my job thinking, I didn't even think about what I was going to do when I get back. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has His rizq. So He gives me a better job with more pay, and I end up working back here. But I'm still learning the Arabic language, and then I decided to then study further a bachelor's in Islamic studies with a university Islamic course, and that was interesting because at that time Islamic studies wasn't as widely available, and I studied online studies because I was married at that time, and then I was thinking, how am I going to study more? And then these pathways started opening up, right? So I studied my Islamic studies, and I really enjoyed that, and then I studied more Islamic studies, and I really enjoyed that, so I finished. But then now I'm too tired, so I thought, I'll give studies a rest. I think for you brothers, I think the most important thing is just always be consistent and be on that path of wanting to know more. And I hope that when you're learning these or you're getting ideas from these lessons, it will give you an encouragement to be more inquisitive about your Islam and your deen. Not necessarily, you don't all need to learn and study so much, because we all don't have time for it. It's up to each individual. But always be inquisitive and ask those questions, and then you'll reach a point where you can no longer get certain stuff from books, and then you need to ask more teachers and so forth. That was probably a bit long of a waffle, but I hope that gives you some ideas as you move along, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. So that's sort of our discussion with the Islamic study side of things. Yeah. Let's move on to sort of your career, or you mentioned your job earlier. So you mentioned you studied finance in uni, and now you work in Islamic finance. So would you mind sharing what was the journey or the process through all of that?
Yeah. I think that might be more interesting. But I think I'll rewind a little bit more. Okay. when I was in high school, and even what you know, you now, many of you in high school, maybe just in uni, what did I spend all my time doing? What do you think? What do you guys do now? Come on, man. What do you do? If you're going to get home, what are you going to do now? You're going to cook dinner? You're going to prepare food for the family tomorrow? Is that what you're going to do? Oh, you go to sleep? All right. You play games? All right. What else do you do? You play sports? So, you know, in high school, a lot of my time was filled with those things. And you know, I don't expect my kids to study be so devoted and study so much Islam, spend 5 hours a day studying Islam throughout high school, right? So what you're doing now, brothers, is it's very normal. You play your games, you have fun, you play your sports, and then you study your Islam as well. So what I'm telling you is probably, I'm just conscious of, there's things that you should be doing now and enjoying for yourself, and then there's things that you might want to think about in the future. And I'm speaking about these things that you might want to think about in the future. I'm not telling you to do that now. Right, now you should have fun, right? You should have so much fun, mashallah. But going back to the question, okay, how did I continue my work? So when I finish uni, what you normally do is you want to get out into the workforce, and you get out into the workforce, you work, and so forth. I worked in the finance field, and then I got an interesting job at that time at eBay. You know, the buying and selling. You buy and sell things online at eBay. It's an online marketplace platform. You guys know eBay, like Alibaba, that kind of stuff, right? So I got an interesting job there, and that's when I actually wanted to learn more Islam. And the amazing thing was they were very supportive of my Islam and so forth. That's the job I actually quit to go to Saudi, and then I came back. And then I got a job at Apple, right? And that was a very interesting job because at that time, they were just launching the iPhones, these iPhones. So we did a lot of working on that in Australia and in Asia. So that was interesting. But then after that, I decided to actually quit my... So it was quite amazing because you quit one job seeking the deen, and then you come back and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you something better. And inshallah, I hope you'll see this through practical experience as you move on in your life. And then the more interesting part is now, after that, at that time, I decided to quit my job to look after my family, spend time with, and then we had a child, and then I decided to quit that job to spend more time with the family. So I spent a lot of time at home actually supporting my wife and supporting my kids, looking after them at home, and then supporting both of us as I went back to work part-time and my wife went back to work part-time. But that's when the job in Islamic finance came up. I went into the interview saying, look, I don't have any experience in finance, but I've done this stuff in the past. And they're like, all right, yeah, we'll hire you, man, you know. So that's how I got into Islamic finance. But one of the reasons why I wanted to do that was because you know, there's so many things that we can do in the community, whether it's organizing events like this at the centers, just organizing events with the brothers. But there are different levels that you can work at the community, and every single one of them are extremely important. Not one of them is more important than the others, okay? Any sort of work that you do for the community at every level is extremely important, whether it's just coming to events like this, getting a few friends to come to events like this to experience the brotherhood, whether it's like Brother Labib's role where he's organizing these events, whether it's organizing the center, and then you have another level where there's organizations and people working for the long-term betterment of the community. Well, all these levels, it's working for the betterment of the community in the long term, right? But you need to be able, when you're building the community and you're building our next generation, my brothers, we need to like put each other on our shoulders, right? You know, I'm putting you on my shoulders and you're going to put other people on your shoulders so you can go further. And when you work in for me, I felt that when you're working in Islamic finance, you know, you're getting to contribute to the development of the community. Money is perhaps very not important to you now. You know, that is probably one of the last things you're thinking about, a house to support your family, to support your kids. But as you move on in life, these things, money becomes more and more important, right? So my interest in Islamic finance is because I want to see systems or places in place or processes in place so that when you grow older, or even for people in the community right now, they have access to, you know, an Islamic form of finance, right? Because we all know the banks, we all know all these big banks, but what about the Islamic version? And there's more and more kids every year, every single year. There's more and more kids. You are going to grow up. You're going to be adults, and you're going to need things to help you start your life and so forth. So that's how I got into Islamic finance, and that's why I'm so interested in it. And I know it bores you kids. That's what I'm saying at the beginning. This is maybe something you can think about in the future. And when I tell my sons the same thing, they're like, you work there? Okay, yeah, whatever. You know, they're not interested. And I understand if you're not interested. But it's ideas for you to think about as you grow older, you're serving your family, but you're serving the community as well. Which level do you want to work at? They're all as important as each other. And how do you use the skills to contribute? And you don't have to, you do things that are interesting for you. You don't have to choose things that you're doing it because everyone else is doing it. You're doing it because you're interested, and that's where you feel you can contribute. You know, so I think that's more of the lesson for you, rather than, I need probably a bit more boring story of where I'm working and you know, how I got there.
Surprisingly, some of the younger brothers, they've actually asked to ask a few more questions regarding Islamic finance.
Yeah, is it halal, is it haram, that kind of stuff? Can I take a loan from the bank? Is that kind of stuff?
No, it's more general questions. Like one of the brothers asked, "What is the main problem?"
Are these live questions coming now, or is that?
No, this is
before. Okay.
Yeah. What is the main problem Muslims face in finance?
Working in the field of finance.
Working and sort of dealing with it.
Yeah, look,
living in Australia.
Okay, so was that just the question? What is the
main problem? Yeah.
Of Muslims. What's the question?
What is the main problem Muslims face in finance?
What is the main problem Muslims face in finance? All right. So that might be two questions. So either working in finance and in obtaining finance, all right? And then, so in regards to working in finance, and that's the challenge, you know, in Australia, the financial system is based on an interest system. So there are so many jobs out there that are based on interest and working in banks and so forth. You know, and I might say something controversial. Is it live on air on Facebook?
Yeah, it's live.
Okay. Okay. Look, you know, and I think the first answer that you will probably get in regards to, you know, can I work for a bank and whatever, it's going to be quite a negative response because, and I'm giving you the broader picture here. Inshallah, it'll be interesting for some of you brothers. The first response you'll get from working in the Australian financial industry as a Muslim, from a Muslim advice or a Muslim leader, is that, yani, there's so much interest involved. These are industries that you should avoid. Okay. Myself working in Islamic finance, on the other hand, we find it extremely difficult to meet Muslims or knowing Muslims that understand the financial industry well enough to implement Islamic finance properly in Australia. You get the two problems now. So one is we're told not to work and not to know about Western Islamic finance. And on the other hand is we want to implement Islamic finance in Australia, okay? So obviously, how do you do that? How do you do that? Do you just go, some bloke like me goes, works at Apple, and then the next thing he goes work in finance and knows everything? No, right? So we then need to engage a lot of experts in the field to advise us how to implement Islamic finance in Australia. Yeah. So, I think what I would like to see is, and this is just more questions for the brothers here, because it's going to be a problem for you to solve. It's not I'm not saying it's not my problem, but mashallah, there's more bright minds here to solve, is, how do we get together as a community to gain those skills without brothers necessarily falling into haram or needing to work in a riba industry? Because that's problematic in itself. But then we need these skills to implement Islamic finance, so what do? Right? But it's not. That's a question for the Imams Council and all these organizations to answer, to have pathways in place to identify where we need to head as a community. We need more Islamic finance, we need more schools, we need this and that. And where is the shortages of skills coming from? And making specific advice for the community about where to work, right? So if the Imam Council gets out there and says, look, maybe we should have certain interns from the Muslim community to learn all these things from the banks, not the riba stuff, not the haram stuff, but the regulations and the laws, so this can be applied to some, then they can have these strategies in place. But one of the challenges, if ourselves, we go through uni and we want to apply for a job, is that a lot of the finance industry is very difficult for a Muslim to enter in, because traditionally they deal with a lot of haram things. But saying that, everyone's personal circumstances are different, and I think it's really important to think broadly about that. Now, the second part is, what are some of the Muslim challenges faced in obtaining finance? So like we said before, right, it's, as a community, we're growing, I'm seeing more and more young faces, but how do we, as a community now, provide for you when you need a car, when you need somewhere to live? Yeah, and we always get that advice about, okay, you can just rent your whole lives, but when you actually meet people in the community, it's not so easy for a family of six or seven people to move every single 6 months and so forth. For example, if I lived in a place, let me know when to move on, because I could be just ranting, but I'm just giving you a whole context. So, I think the challenges for obtaining Islamic finance is we don't have the skills, and I hope that you brothers, when you grow older, you will learn more, and not just Islamic finance, but every single field. We're still a growing community, so there's a lot of skills that we're lacking that we need to learn and improve on, and we should try and do that, especially for Islamic finance. Please, you should move me on. You should keep the time, brother, and you guys should move me on. You guys should.
We're doing well for time.
Because like I can.
You can say some.
I can talk a lot, but I'm just conscious of the young
span.
Faces, yeah. Mashallah.
So we'll zoom out a bit and focus on some general questions before I get the brothers to start asking questions here. So just in case you're wondering, if you go to that website there and you put that code in, you can put 3 anonymous questions, okay? Which is going to be very soon. So in about 5 minutes, we're going to go through the anonymous questions. So if you have any questions you're a bit shy to ask in person, you can put it through the anonymous question, inshallah. So just zooming out a bit, alhamdulillah, a lot of the brothers here have ambitions to study Islamic studies and pursue a career. So what would be some advices, or you could say some gems that they could take home today on how they can balance and structure their day, their routine to inshallah achieve those goals?
Look, I think at your age, at this age, and I say that with a lot of respect. I don't say this age as in you're young, you shouldn't be thinking about this. I respect you a lot, all of you. I'm hearing you're between 12 and 20 years old. I think it's an awesome age for you to start thinking about your career and what you're going to do next. And I think it's also amazing that, from my experience anyway, this is one of the few centres where you have teaching staff that balance between, the Sheikh himself and the teaching staff, the balance between seeking Islamic knowledge and studying studying your normal things that you do at school. And the reason why that's important is because I'm literally just 15 years ago, in the early 2000s, when you wanted to get serious about Islam, you had to sort of make a choice. You go overseas and you give up everything, and then you study, you study overseas and you give up everything here. Likewise, if you just stayed here and work, then you'll feel really guilty that you're giving up all your Islamic studies. But now, alhamdulillah, you got Markaz Imam Ahmad, mashallah, and you have many other amazing centers. But in particular, from my experience anyway, in my opinion, it's one of the few places where you have teaching staff that balance between deen and your careers. One of the most important pieces of advice, I think, is not how you should do something, but where you can seek advice. Yeah, so you're all very different. You all have your own skills. You all might end up doing very different things, okay? But number one is knowing where to seek advice. And inshallah, this center is going to be here for a very long time. Anytime you need advice about what to study or where you can study from an Islamic perspective and a career perspective, I believe that you can ask it right here, and either Labib, he can answer it himself, or he can put you in touch with people that can help you and sit with you and spend the time with you to do that, okay? But I think the most, I think when you're between, it's 12 to 20, so age group, okay? When you're at this age group, I'll give you the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You hear a lot about this, when you read the seerah of the Prophet, the biography of the Prophet, much of it deals with when he turns 40 and his prophethood 23 years after that. So, is that correct? Right. So you have really thick books. Most of that is dedicated to his life in adulthood. But you kids, you look at that and you think, but I'm 12, I'm 13, I'm 14. How does that compare to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who's 40 or 42 or 43 or 50 or so forth, as you read his seerah? So if you take a step back a bit, if you look at what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, and I could be going off topic, but keep me on topic. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was 9 years old, what was he doing? Was he studying Islam? Was he sitting and memorizing Quran 12 hours a day? What was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam doing at 9 years old? He had a job, right? He was he was a herdsman, tending to goats and sheep outside for the people of Mecca. And then when he reached about in his teens, like this age, your age now, he had another job. What did he do? Yeah. He accompanied his uncle to do business. Yeah, that was when he was about between, and the seerah, the scholars of seerah, they don't give an exact age, they say between 12 and 14 and so forth. The age varies between what scholars you go to, but I want you to look at the jobs that the Prophet ﷺ was doing. First of all, he was attending to sheep. He already had a job when he was 9. He had that responsibility. And then he attended and accompanied his uncle for business. So he would travel with his uncle really far away to Syria and so forth. Okay, is it by car? Did they get in the plane and they go for business? Did they start the car and drive up to Gold Coast and do business? No, they don't do that, man. They get on camels, they get on donkeys, they ride. Yeah, they learn where they need to stop to get water. All these things to do business. So you can imagine all the skills that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ got just from accompanying his uncle to do business and trading and so forth. And when he was 16, they had a battle. The Quraysh had a battle called the Battle of Fujjar. And it was a battle between basically his tribe, the Quraysh, and another tribe. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was still young to physically battle at this point, but he assisted in that battle. So when he was 16, about your age, he was assisting in really high level logistics. And then when he was a bit after that, when he was towards 18, he participated in this treaty, okay, that happened after when the war settled. Okay, they wanted to negotiate, they wanted peace. Prophet ﷺ also attended that. So you can see between 8 years old to by the time he was 20, he had all these very interesting experiences that gave him a lot of responsibility along the way. Okay, you know, my advice for you is, I don't think you need to choose now exactly what career, although things might interest you, but rather get experiences. And I say this to your parents too, so don't worry. I give khutbah and I say this to the adults. So I'm trying to do it at all levels, right? Get experiences that interest you. You know, so for example, you know, the Quran and learning Islam is a given. That's baseline. That's what you do. You come here to NextGen. You have your Saturday schools and so forth. That's baseline. You should do that, inshallah. But for you boys, do things that interest you, right? Go on camps with your friends. Organize camps. Get experiences that will give you responsibility, because if you look at Islam, many of you are entering what is they called balugh, which is the age where you are accountable in Islam. And does that mean we expect you to act like an adult and think like an adult? No, of course not. We don't expect that of any of you. We expect you to have fun and enjoy your teenage years. But, you know, when you go out there and obtain experiences with your friends and your family, it might give you a better idea of what you want to do or what you like in the future, rather than your very classic finance, no offense, doctor, lawyers, you know, that kind of stuff. I know we hear that a lot, but if you gain this experience like Prophet ﷺ did, you'll make up your own mind with guidance from, maybe with guidance from your parents, with guidance from members of the community, what you want to do, okay? But if I was going to give you a key advice, is to experience your life a bit more. Obtain things that will give you a bit more responsibility, or enjoy experiences that will give you a bit more responsibility. Whether it's just helping out at the center or, you know. And then you'll find out, because I think at this age, it's more important for you to learn skills for life rather than knowing exactly what you want to be. I think that's secondary, but for you, it's about learning skills in life, right? Learning little etiquette. I'll give you a story, subhanAllah, you know, I was at Bukhari House in Auburn. I just gave a lecture. I was with, you know, Sheikh Khalid. He's a very known Sheikh, he's well known in the community. He's old. I was chatting with him, and then some high school boys, they decided it was a joke. They said Salaam alaikum to the Sheikh, and when the Sheikh stuck his hands out, and they were like, to a Sheikh, all right? Not even it's a Sheikh, but just to an adult or to another person. And I was just shocked. Yeah, I was shocked because I just didn't know how to act, you know, and the reason why I tell you that story is because as you're growing older now, you know, you need to learn more. So the career is important, but you need to learn things that will set you up for life, right? Gaining experiences, learning basic etiquette of dealing with elders, dealing with other Muslims. I know it's very common amongst the youth to prank and do jokes like that, but that stuff is not Islamic. You know, you don't play jokes and do Islam. You know, you hear stories about they're hiding this brother's bike and he's getting upset, and even though it's a practical joke later, that's not Islam. That's actually haram in Islam. You don't do that. Okay, but as you're going through this stage, it's really important to set yourself right in regards to your mannerisms. And the more you deal with adults, like, you know, we have the volunteers here, the more you interact with more older people, you'll learn this maturity. And that's what I hope to see in every single one of you, right? That, yes, you can enjoy your life, but you learn ways to deal with people. And if you gain those experiences in life, you know, especially at your age, you will carry these things on, and inshallah, you'll be successful in whatever you do, okay? So I hope that's more related to you, and that will give you a bit more guidance about what you should do now to prepare for your future as you move on, inshallah.
Awesome. I think that was very beneficial advice, and inshallah we can all implement that.
Inshallah, brothers. Please implement it. Get your experiences. I'm like, look, I don't know if I'm going to be here again, I'll see you again, but that's the most important thing, please. And I preach that to your parents too, so to parents as well. So hopefully you can both align on that, inshallah.
Inshallah. So we've got a few questions through the anonymous platform.
Yep.
The first question is, when deciding on a career path, where do I draw the line between what interests me and what will earn a good salary?
That's a good question, because it's funny, because if you normally ask that question, there's two camps. One would say, I'll give you both, and I think you're, mashallah, you're mature enough to not have a direct answer, because often in life you want a black and white answer, but you're not going to get a black and white answer. There's always a grey answer. On the one hand, you might hear all the time, choose what you love the most, pursue your passions, right? But that's not necessarily going to earn you a lot of money, which is what this question is asking. And likewise, sometimes you'll do a job, okay, you earn a lot of money, but you might not necessarily like it, okay? So, my advice to you is, for that particular person or anyone else, when they're thinking about that, is just to try many things. You never know. Because it's oftentimes that's quite a theoretical question, okay? You don't have an interesting job versus one that's going to pay more. But if you ever are presented with that, please call Markaz Imam Ahmad, email Labib, and then we can discuss it. What options do you have, okay? But I think the most important thing is, a lot of advice, and I used to be the same too. I used to give very sort of one-line advice in, look, you should do this and that. But I think you should just experiment and try, right? But as you grow older, your financial responsibilities will increase, and you need to weigh that with whatever you're interested in, because sometimes in life you don't get a choice about whether you should choose something that you like versus a lot of money. If you're the sole income earner of your household and you're looking after your kids, okay, and your family, of course, it's probably more beneficial for you to earn more money to support them. If you are coming from a very wealthy family, choose what you like to do. You don't need to think about money, right? So it really depends on your circumstance. That's why if these things come up, call the brother Labib, and then we will talk about it, inshallah. But the key thing about these things, just be flexible, and it's really dependent from person to person.
Jazakallahu khairan.
Oh, yeah.
Another question is, one of the brothers is asking, what university did you study Islam at?
Yep.
And regarding the Islamic knowledge you obtained, was it more through online or in person?
Okay, so, and that's an interesting question, right? Because, and that goes down to what I said earlier. Sometimes there's a stigma attached to, if you are learning online, you are getting less information than learning face to face. All right. So there's two aspects. There's information, Islamic information, and then there's this Islamic etiquette and maturity that we spoke about. These experiences that you get. Okay. I studied online with Islamic University in Malaysia. So I did my bachelor's and I did my master's with the same university. It was online, and what I found from that was, because I studied online and offline, but it was studying online, but what I found when I was studying online through a university, it's like a typical university course, right? You go in there, you have modules you need to complete, you have assignments, you have lectures. So the interaction that you get with the teacher is probably similar to what you would get in a typical university classroom setting. Now, from the Islamic etiquettes and the Islamic maturity and the things that I just spoke about now, the experiences, you won't never get that online. Okay, you get that face to face by living with a sheikh. So I was fortunate enough when I was in Saudi, I lived with a sheikh for about 6 months. And this is living with him, this is meaning I was living in the masjid. I was helping to clean toilets, I was helping to do all sorts of jobs. And he would, not because he expected that, it's because you do that as good manners. You look after the masjid and the place you're staying. But it was funny, I received a lot of knowledge from him, but it was more how to live as a Muslim, how to really embody the Quran, how to embody the Sunnah in your life. Because, for example, I can tell you now, we can say easily, the deen is good manners. We hear that, the deen is good manners. But what does that mean? How do you live the deen is good manners? Is it those boys going up to Sheikh Khalid and saying Assalamu alaikum and playing that practical joke? Is that good manners? Of course we know that's not good manners, right? Okay, so you get that through your companionship with more experienced and knowledgeable people in the community. And likewise, when you start sitting in private lessons with scholars, you learn more of these etiquettes, and you learn more of these mannerisms and maturity from these lessons, more than the actual knowledge. Because with the knowledge now, subhanallah, it's easy to get. The knowledge, alhamdulillah, it's very easy to get, but it's these mannerisms that is often missing, and that you get from your companionship with scholars. Is there Shaa at 7:30? We're going to finish? Okay, yeah. Is there any other questions?
Yeah. There's a few around this sort of topic. How do you cope with the standard of living, I'm assuming the costs of living, and wanting to get married in the future, and at the same time, and being able to support your family, whilst being balanced in deen and dunya?
Is this really 12 to 20-year-olds asking this? Like, come on, bros.
I think that over the last 10, 15 years, the mindset of the 12 has matured.
You guys are amazing. If this is can you read that question?
So how do you cope,
MashaAllah, all right.
How do you cope with the standard of living?
Yep.
And wanting to get married in the future, and supporting your family, and being balanced in deen and dunya?
You guys are amazing, mashallah. You're gonna invite me back. I want to hear you do some more of these questions. First of all, it's an amazing question, and it points to the maturity of your brothers, and at the same time, the attention span. I know there's some yawning, I know some tiredness, but overall, mashallah, the mannerisms is amazing. A good job done by Labib and Co. and whoever else looks after you brothers, mashallah. Look, there's no hard and fast rule, brothers. Look, if generally speaking, okay, salaries are tied to good education. In general, I know there's going to be very wealthy people. And I don't mean education as just a university education. I mean education as in, if you learn a trade and things like that. I mean it in a broad perspective, okay? Not just getting 99.9 in HSC. You can be 99.9 HSC, and so it's tied to education. It's tied to learning a skill really well that society wants from you. Okay, if you learn a skill really well that society wants, you'll make some money, and then you'll look after your family. And there's no hard and fast rules, okay? The most important thing for you brothers is gain skills that society needs or people need. Okay, and perhaps it could be you can be looking down and see what pays well, what doesn't pay well. And then when you get these skills, then you can start working, then you can start thinking about getting married, then you can start thinking about, it's quite funny because I have a son that every time he's a bit younger, but you mention marriage to like younger kids, maybe younger than you guys, and they're like, I don't want to talk about that, but So I find it interesting that this question is coming. But look, it's about obtaining skills. So if you guys can get skills, no matter what skill, okay, that society values, then you'll make money. Simple as that. And it's up to you to identify what you got to offer, you know. And that's the most important thing, right? We spoke about before, when the Prophet ﷺ had all these experiences, he was a desirable man here, and by the time he was 25, he had so many skills to offer, on offer, that people wanted to hire him to do jobs for them. And it led to Khadija radiallahu anha hiring him. So it's about obtaining these skills as society wants. It's about then experimenting with what you like and what you don't like, and your paths are all going to be different. But if you know where to get the advice, which is you have a lot of resources here, then as you move throughout your life, you will know where to get that advice and to then consider where to go, you know, because it's very simple providing you with straight advice, but then you just walk out of here and you might think, oh, no, I was thinking something else, and then you might just, you know, end up not coming back to the center. But the most important thing is, as you move on in life, from whether you're 12, 15, 20, and you keep on going on in life, come back to the center to ask for advice, to ask for help, to ask for this discussion that you want.
We're going to conclude here, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, Ustadh Yusuf, for your time. I know you've had to drive very far to get here. And personally, I benefited a lot from this conversation. And I'm sure the brothers here benefit a lot. I guess the take-home message is there aren't very many black and white answers. That you need to, like, you need a lot of flexibility in the answers you're seeking as well. So, and then the key messages were building that experience, building those skills, and trying out different things. And inshallah, that will help you find out who you want to be.
And the most important thing is knowing where to get your answers. Okay, so if you know where to get the answers, which inshallah is at this center, then you'll be all right, you know, inshallah.
Inshallah. Barakallahu feekum.
Fik barak.
We will get ready for salah. If the brothers don't have wudu, I recommend going now to make wudu, and we'll start the salah in a minute, inshallah. Yeah. So everyone that's here for NextGen, after the salah, can we all go to the back, as we usually do, to get ready for sports? The faster you can get to the back, without obviously after doing your adhkar and so on, the quicker we can get sports started, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.